Today's lesson is on adding and subtracting rational numbers, and today we're focusing on fractions. Rational numbers are any number, positive or negative, that can be written as a fraction. For example, 1.5 is a rational number because it can be written as 1 and 1/2. 2.3 repeating is a rational number because it can be written as 2 and 1/3. So although we work in decimal form at times, rational numbers are any that can be as a fraction, and today we're focusing on exactly those that are already written in fraction form, positive and negative. For example 1, I have a -3.5, subtract 4 and 2/3. The first thing I'm going to do is estimate. I'm going to round this off to a -4, subtract 5. And when I estimate it, that gives me about -9. The reason we estimate it is it's going to give me an indicator of, am I going to be adding or subtracting these rational numbers? And since when I estimated, I added them because they're the same sign, I'm going to apply that same rule. I have a negative, and then I'm taking more away. Those signs are the same. I add them, and I'm going to actually do the solving part over to the side. 3 and 1/2 plus 4 and 2/3. Now, in order to add numbers, they need a common denomination, or as we say, a common denominator. The whole numbers are already whole, but the fractions, one's halves and one's thirds. So I need a common denominator, the smallest number that both of them will go into, and that is 6. 1/2 is 3/6 and 2/3 is 4/6. I got those by seeing how many times 2 and 3 would go into that denominator of 6. Now when I add, I get 7 and 7/6. Since the second is an improper fraction, I rewrite it, and 7 and 7/6 simplifies to 8 and 1/6. When I look back at my estimation, it looks like I got a negative number the first time, which makes sense because I'm at -3.5 and I take 4 and 2/3 away, so my final answer would be negative as well. For example 2, you'll notice that I have a double sign. So let's simplify that first. That gives me 3.5 minus 4 and 2/3. Let's estimate 3.5, we're going to round to 4. 4 and 2/3, we're going to round to 5. And my estimation is going to give me about -1. Now, what did I do with those numbers? Well, I actually subtracted them because I have a positive, and then I'm taking something away from that, or a positive 3.5 and a negative 4 and 2/3. Since I'm subtracting them, I'm going to do that over here to the side. The 4 and 2/3 subtract 3 and 1/2. We already found our common denominator to be 6. That gives me 4/6 minus 3/6 gives me 1/6, and 4 minus 3 gives me 1. So when I look at my final answer, I get -1 and 1/6. And that negative came because I was taking more away than what I started with, which is a number that is very close to my estimate. It looks like in example 3, I have a double sign again. So I'm going to simplify that and rewrite it as -3.5 plus 4 and 2/3. When I go to estimate, that's a -4 plus a +5, and this time it's going to give me an estimate of a +1. When I go to actually solve it over to the side, I know that I'm going to need to subtract them again. 4 and 2/3, subtract 3.5, and I already did that subtraction the first time. 4/6 and 3/6, and 4 minus 3 is 1/6. 4 minus 3 is 1, and this time my answer is positive because there are more positives than there are negatives. Here's one for you to try on your own. So pause it, try it, and then play and check your answer. My first step is going to be to rewrite this without the double sign. So negative 2.5 plus 4 4/5. Now when I go to estimate them, it's going to give me about negative 3 plus about 5. Oh, and then I get an estimated answer of 2. And after I have estimated, I'm going to come over to the side and actually do the subtraction. 4 4/5 subtract 2.5. I need a common denominator. In this case, it's going to be 10. That gives me 8/10 and 5/10, which subtracts to give me 3/10, and 4 minus 2 is 2. So my final answer is 2 3/10.